Hey guys, it's Kid Comics in front of the Great Wall of Comics, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about my top 10 pickups of 2024. So, for those of you who are new to my channel, hello, I am Kid Comics. I do a lot of comic book related content, and I've been collecting comic books for really about a year now. So, you guys are going to see some pretty crazy keys, some pretty crazy grails, and some pretty cool reads. So, without further ado, let's begin the video. Coming right in on the number 10 spot, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 39. Now, for those of you who don't know, this book is actually the first John Romita artwork on the Amazing Spider-Man series. And this was right after Steve Ditko left Marvel, pretty much, and stopped working on Spider-Man. So, the reason I wanted to put this on my top 10 list is A, because it's a really, really sick John Romita cover. And B, because it has a lot of sentimental value, not just to me, but whoever owned this book. And, it has a lot of drawings, a lot of kids' drawings. You see Spider-Man with sunglasses and a beard. There's a cool bat signal saying, calling Batman and Boy Wonder. And you could tell a kid clearly loved this. And, even on the back, there's some math homework, and he even wrote his name down, which I've talked about in a previous video, where his name was Dencio Lajon, and he lived all the way out in San Jose. Plus, he wrote the date that he bought the book, and the time. So, yeah, 10:34 p.m., 65 degrees outside, and it was July 25th, 1966. And this is a really interesting book. This is when Spider-Man finds out that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin. And really, really classic story. Stan Lee did a great job. And really, really happy to have this in my top 10 spot. Now, coming in our number 9 spot, we actually have not one, but two Brave and the Bold books. And these are some pretty early ones. So we've got Brave and the Bold number 80 and number 75. So 80 is the Batman and the Creeper, and 75 is Batman and the Spectre. So honestly, I was really, really happy because I was actually able to pick these up at a flea market along with some other books for around 60 bucks. And this guy was he was definitely in his 60s, maybe 70s, and he was sitting at a flea market with his wife, I assumed, and he was selling a lot of his old comics and their records and stuff. And he told me, that he really, really loved Neal Adams as a kid. And you can clearly tell by the conditions of these books and the gloss just how nice he kept care of these books. So he really took care of these books. And these are really, really cool to own in my collection. As you can see, that bright blue on Batman. You usually don't come across this, especially on 12-cent books. And same thing with this one, except this one I think has some sort of foxing or molding at the bottom. But nonetheless, this is like a really, really awesome flea market find. And I'm really happy to have this in my number 9 spot. Now, coming in our number 8 spot, we have Silver Surfer number 3 in a CGC 5.0. Now, for those of you who don't know, Silver Surfer 3 is the first appearance of Mephisto, which is a demon. Well, he pretty much is just the devil. And in this issue, he tries to convince Silver Surfer to work for him and, rid all good from the earth so that way he could take it over. But eventually, in the end, he doesn't end up doing that. And what's pretty cool is there's a Tales of the Watcher backup story where this guy, he finds an alien spaceship and there's a logbook. So he runs over to the space station and then he realizes that he was the one that actually wrote it and he was the actual alien that crashed into Earth. So that was a pretty cool plot twist, Tales of the Watcher backup story. And John Buscema, if you don't know, he did the artwork on this. He has some really, really, crazy talent in the comic book industry. He's by far a top 3 artist, in my opinion. And if you just look at that bright orangish red cover, you see Mephisto in the flames, you see Silver Surfer flying right in as he's holding Shalla-Bal. But it's just really, really cool book. And I actually got this as a graduation gift for my middle school graduation. So, really happy to have this in my top 8 spot. Now, coming in at our number 7 spot, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 299. Now, this is a CBCS 9.6 signed by Bob McLeod. Now, for those of you who don't know, Bob McLeod actually did the artwork for Amazing Spider-Man 299, as well as Todd McFarlane, and the story work for this was David Michelinie. And I thought this is a really, really sick cover done by Todd McFarlane. And for those of you who don't know, this is also the first appearance of Venom in Cameo, where you get to see a full body shot of Venom right before Amazing Spider-Man 300, which is his huge debut issue. So, within the past 2 issues from 300, they kind of teased Venom, and 299 was when you actually got to see him. And it's a really cool story. It talks about a villain, lesser-known villain, known as Chance, where Spider-Man has been trying to track him down because he got hired by some contractors to stop some illegal gun crate shipment. And eventually he finds him, but realizes that he was tricked by his contractors. And eventually they work together, save the day, you know what I mean. And then we finally get to see what happens right before Amazing Spider-Man 300. So yeah, really awesome. Signed by Bob McLeod on 5/24/2018, May 24th. And here's the back for you guys. So yeah, I was really, really happy to have this. And I actually just talked about this book in my last video. So make sure to go check that out if you haven't. Coming in at our number 6 spot, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 41. Now, this is the first appearance of Rhino, and this is by far one of the best John Romita covers I've ever seen. And you get to see this really, really menacing Rhino stomping out Spider-Man, and it says, "The Horns of the Rhino." Now, this is a pretty basic story in my opinion. It talks about where this Rhino got touched by some space spores that accidentally got leaked out of a space station, and he became this giant sort of like behemoth that was destroying town, and Spider-Man had some classic, save the day action. So, nothing too crazy for the story, but the condition on this book is super, super clean, and I really, really love John Romita as an artist. So, I'm really, really happy to have this book in my number 6 spot. Now, in our number 5 spot is when things start to get really serious in this video. So we're going to be showing you guys some pretty crazy keys and a couple of really, really cool sign books. So, kicking it off with number 5, we have Green Lantern and Green Arrow number 82. And this is a CGC 3.5 signed by Neal Adams. Not just that, but it's also from the personal collection of Neal Adams himself. Plus, you got that really sick custom label. So, I'm really, really happy to pick this up. I only picked it up for around $100, and it was really, really cool to find on eBay. And this book talks about a lot about a Greek and Roman mythology, where the Harpies were kind of the main problem, until we realized that, Hal Jordan gets kidnapped pretty much by Medusa because she was betrayed ages ago by a man, and now she hates all of mankind. So it was a really, really interesting story and take by Denny O'Neil, but this is a really, really cool book to have, especially from Neal Adams' own personal collection. I mean, you get that you usually find Neal Adams signed books anywhere, but not from his own personal collection. I've only seen a few of these books online, and that's about it. So I'm really, really, really happy to have this book in my number 5 spot. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 316 and a CGC 9.6. Now, this is by far one of the most classic Amazing Spider-Man covers I've ever seen. And this is done by Todd McFarlane, and the story work was done by David Michelinie. And this is an absolutely amazing story. I honestly think it's slightly better than Amazing Spider-Man 300, just because it's such a more action-packed, fulfilled story. And it shows that Venom has gotten much stronger in this issue as time has passed on, compared to how strong he was during 300 when he just recently received the black suit. So, honestly, this was such a crazy issue, and 317 is just kind of like the part 2. And I really love the cover. This is by far one of Todd McFarlane's best covers. But I will be saving another crazy Venom key for you guys. So, happy to have this in my number 4 spot. Now, in our number 3 spot, we have the Wolverine Limited Series number 1 and a CGC 9.4 newsstand. Now, this is an entire series that I have not even shown to you guys once on this channel, as I just got it in today. And not even just the number 1. I managed to get number 2, which is a 9.0 newsstand. Number 3, which is a 9.4 newsstand. And we got number 4, which is a 9.2 newsstand. And all of these for $325, which in my opinion is a spanking deal. So I'm super happy to have all of these books. And for those of you who don't know, I actually have the trade paperback for the Wolverine Limited series. And this was such a crazy read. Pretty much, it was a lot about, you know, the Japanese culture, where Wolverine loved some girl, but his father was like a samurai, and he had to fight him. And it was a really cool story, in my opinion. So, honestly, if you haven't gotten a copy of this, I suggest you go get a trade paperback of the Wolverine Limited series, because, you know, the books in themselves are pretty expensive. So, honestly, this cover is so sick, and this is a pretty cool fun fact. This cover was actually an homage to a Frank Sinatra picture, where he's kind of doing something like this. I think it was for like a record or something like that. One of his albums, possibly, or like a single. But nonetheless, it's a pretty cool fun fact that Frank Miller used that sort of picture to kind of inspire this classic Wolverine cover. And honestly, this is a series I had to get eventually. From the previous episodes of Kid Comics, I talked a little bit about a review of this, and I was extremely excited to have the trade paperback for it. So I knew from that day on, I had to somehow find like the whole series. So I'm super happy to have the entire series, especially number 1 being a 9.4 newsstand, for only $325. And our number 2 spot, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 100. Now, what is so special about this book, you might question? Well, this is because this copy of Amazing Spider-Man 100 was signed by none other than John Romita himself. And John Romita was an extremely monumental artist for Spider-Man as a whole. You know, after his takeover, from this series back way in issue 39, he had a really amazing art that attracted the series even more than possibly what Steve Ditko could have ever done. And honestly, some of his most classic covers are what made Spider-Man what he is today. Like Amazing Spider-Man 50, Amazing Spider-Man 41, like I showed you guys, and even something like Amazing Spider-Man 100, which is a huge anniversary issue, especially back then. Usually a lot of series had just started reaching the 100 issue point. So honestly, I'm super happy to have this book, and this is when Spider-Man gets his 6 arms. So really interesting, and right after this issue, we get to see Morbius for the first time. So I'm really happy to have this in my number 2 spot. Now, obviously, while making this list, there had to be a ton of books factored in, and a lot of those books didn't end up making the cut. So I thought, let me show you guys a few honorable mentions that were really cool, but just not enough to make my top 10 list. So, starting off, we've got Iron Man 150. This is actually a really cool John Romita Jr. Cover, and as you can see, I have a similar one in the background of Submariner number 8. This one features Iron Man and Doctor Doom. And this is a really solid looking book. Really nice black cover. So, really cool one. Next, we do have Ghost Rider 1 and 1. Now, obviously, these are from different eras. This one is from the Silver Age, and this one's from the Bronze Age. This one is Carter Slade's Ghost Rider, and this one is Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider. Me, personally, I kind of like Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider a lot more. Anyways, finally, with our honorable mentions, we have a pretty big book. We have New Mutants 98 and a CGC 9.4 newsstand. This is the first appearance of Deadpool, and I'm really happy to have this book in my collection. So yeah, some pretty cool honorable mentions. Finally, for our number 1 spot, I've been talking about this book for quite a bit throughout the video now, so I hope you guys have some sort of clue as to what this book is. But without further ado, this is Amazing Spider-Man number 300 in a newsstand. Now, like I've said, I've mentioned Amazing Spider-Man 299 and 316. But why is 300 better than all of those? Well, this is because this is the first full appearance of Venom, not like a cameo or the first full actual like cover appearance like 316, but this is the first full appearance. And I thought that David Michelinie did an awesome job of executing how Venom, is, as well as Todd McFarlane's art. So, honestly, I think the cover for this is just slightly better than 316, just because it's such a classic cover. I mean, you'll see this pretty much anywhere. Even if there's like people that aren't even comic book followers, they'll know this cover. Trust me. They probably won't have as much knowledge on ASM 316 as 300, just because it's such a classic. It's a nice red cover. You get to see Spidey swinging in with that awesome black suit and some pretty crazy Todd McFarlane art. So, I'm pretty happy to have Amazing Spider-Man 300 as my top 1 pickup of 2024. Well, that's going to pretty much wrap up today's video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as I did. And honestly, I hope I got to show you guys some pretty cool keys. Honestly, I've only been doing this for about a year now. And as you can tell, I've gotten a lot of comic books within just a year of collecting. And, not to brag, but I've gotten some pretty crazy keys, like Amazing Spider-Man 300. So I'm really glad to be able to show you guys the stories and even the art of these books, just to show you how much more fun just comic book collecting overall is. And I hope I've inspired even some of you to go out there, go hunt for some pretty cool comic books, whatever era that you guys are interested, whether it be modern, Silver Age, Bronze Age. I really don't care. As long as you guys are enjoying the hobby, that's all that matters to me. So, if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, make sure to smash that subscribe button. And I'll see you guys in 2025. See ya!